Welcome into the Steelers Talk live show. I'm your host, Jack Sperry. Big shout out to all the real ones tuning in for today's program. Today, we're going to tell the truth about the Pittsburgh Steelers defense, kind of debunk a couple myths, go over some of the issues that the team is going through, and how they can fix it, which, of course, is all that matters at this point. We got a bunch of great content coming your way here over the next hour and a half or so on today's program. First up, the latest news and rumors surrounding the Pits, if they can be put into reality when this team plays the New England Patriots on Sunday. Then our second segment today, we are going to be going in depth, okay? So one of the very nerdy segments that I know you guys love on this channel, where we're going to be explaining exactly what's going wrong with the Pittsburgh Steelers defense, debunk a couple of myths that are currently out there on Steelers social media and all this different stuff, and then we'll tell you guys what the issues are and how the Steelers can fix those issues as the season continues on. And then we're going to finish up today's show with a mailbag. So if you guys have any questions throughout the show, if you guys have any questions about this weekend's game against the Patriots, any questions about Juwan Bentley, any questions about Isaiah Hodgins, any questions about Jabril Peppers, Caleb Johnson, will he be benched? Will he even get a helmet this weekend versus the New England Patriots? All those things would be great questions. You guys can get down there in the comment section by using hashtag Steelers. In that comment section, you guys can put hashtag Steelers and then a question behind it for producer Ponzi to be able to see your question. And if it's a good enough question, Ponzi will put it on this week's mailbag. So I want to see all the real ones down there in the chat. Spam me down there in the comments if you have liked today's stream. We currently have 98 people watching live, but only 15 likes, man. We got to get that number up to at least 40 likes before we get into our first segment today. So shout out to Czar Craig, shout out to Rez, shout out to Nicholas Girdler, shout out to Eric Brown, shout out to Paul, shout out to Nicholas, shout out to Cassie, my lovely fiance, shout out to Eugene, shout out to Truth Pigeon, shout out to Eric Brown, Kyle, Michael, Tyler, Kyle, Steven, Joe, Eugene, Steven, Nicholas, Chuck, Kyle, Joe, Steven, Michael, Paul, Madden God. We got Kyle, Joe, Guns and God, Bowman Turner, Clifford, XG, Michael Hyrick. Hope I'm saying that right, Michael. Dwayne Johnson is here. Ethan is here. Robert Locke coming in with the first super chat of the day. We'll put you up on screen here in just a second here, Rob. But let's bring on our producer today, guys. Mr. Producer Ponzi is here. Ponzi, how are we doing today? And our question today, before we get into our segments, is which new Steelers addition will make the biggest impact? Of course, they bring in Jabril Peppers last week. Doesn't play a whole lot. He's still getting ramped up. And then you got Juwan Bentley and Isaiah Hodgins being added to the team this week. Your thoughts on those additions?
I mean, I really think, we talked about it a little bit before, but Jabril Peppers, I think, he fits the Steelers defense very well. I think that, he is probably, more or less of the newer side, but I do think that him and Bentley could hopefully solidify the Steelers defense. And, I'm really excited for Hodgins. I'm anxious to see which role he serves and what that exactly means for Roman Wilson. But, I mean, I think, Bentley and Peppers should be a great addition for the Steelers defense that's been kind of reeling a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. I think Juwan Bentley is probably going to have the biggest impact just because of what he's going to bring to the run game. All right, last year, and really when this defense was playing really good football, I mean, people forget, outside of this last 10-game stretch where the Steelers defense has been terrible, right before that 10-game stretch, they went on a 36-game stretch where they were giving up 20 points or 19 points or less than 20 points in 2/3 of the games they were playing. So this defense was firing on all cylinders. And then all of a sudden, midway through last year, things completely hit the fan. And then that has bled over here into the 2025 season. So Mike Tomlin, Teryl Austin, these guys need to figure it out. And I think a big reason, even though Landon was here last year, the reason why, especially the run defense here in Pittsburgh has been bad to start this year is you don't have enough physicality and enough physical presence at the linebacker spot, or at least you haven't in these first 2 weeks. But Juwan Bentley, he's like the same size as a Landon Roberts, and he brings a very similar level of savvy and physicality that Roberts brought to the table. I think Roberts is a slightly better run defender than Bentley is, Ponzi, but it's not by much. And then I think Bentley is not a great pass defender, but he's better than what Roberts was bringing to the table, who was a complete liability in that portion of his game. And, you bring in a guy like Bentley. I don't think we're going to see a whole lot of him this week because linebacker's a tough position to ramp up just 1 week after signing and, play an NFL game. But I think that he will eventually get into the starting lineup as an early down linebacker, and I think the plan will be for him to play the exact same role Landon Roberts played as the early down linebacker to stop runs, blitz, do all those things, and then Peyton Wilson can come in on 2nd and long, 3rd and medium, 3rd and long, passing situations where he was pretty darn good last year, and it seems like that's kind of the role that he still needs to play at this point in his football development. So I think Juwan Bentley probably makes the biggest impact. We'll see what Julius Peppers can do. It sounds like we're going to see him maybe even start at strong safety over Chuck Clark this week on the Steelers defense. So it'll be exciting to see if he can be an upgrade to Chuck Clark, because Chuck was not fantastic last week in coverage. There's a couple of assignments where he was just really slow to click and close and get to his man. So I'm looking forward to seeing what these new players can bring. I think Hodgins, for the role that he's going to play as like a wide receiver 4, as a bigger route runner type, I think that he brings a decent skill set that this wide receiver room frankly was lacking before you bring him in. So I like the additions that the Steelers made this week and last week. I think they're all really good signings for what they are, and I think that they're going to help make this team a better football team. So if you guys want to guarantee your spot on the mailbag today, and you want to get up on screen right next to me and Ponzi here, you guys can donate to the show via Super Chat. You guys can donate to the show via Venmo or PayPal. If we can get to $100 total in donations today, guys, we will give away one of these Steelers Talk hats to somebody in the chat. $5 raffle tickets. $10 gets you 3 raffle tickets to win the hat. And then $20 gets you 10 tickets plus your name on the Steelers Talk Gong, and join the Gong squad here on Steelers Talk. And then if you guys don't want to deal with the raffle, you guys just want to join Steelers Talk Hat Club, $50 is the price of admission there. Greatly appreciate your guys' support. And if we can get to $250 total today, that's our goal, we will hit the Steelers Talk Gong. And, of course, if you guys donate via Venmo or PayPal, we actually get to keep more of those proceeds. YouTube takes a 30% cut, and Apple takes another 10% cut of the super chats you guys send in. But with Venmo and PayPal, we keep more of those donation dollars to help us pay for rent, to help us pay for new equipment, help us pay for new graphic software, stuff like that. So it really does help us out, guys. And because of that, we're going to give you double the raffle tickets for the Steelers Talk Hat raffle at the end of the show if you donate via Venmo or PayPal. So big shout out to you guys for donating to the show. All right, let's get to some super chats here before we get into our first segment of the day. Robert Locke, $10, says hello Yinzers. Hello to you, Robert Locke. $2 from my man Bernard Nixon, says Florio said A-Rod might regret coming to Pittsburgh, especially now with J.J. McCarthy not playing particularly well. They have to turn to Carson Wentz. If Aaron Rodgers would have waited theoretically for an opportunity, he could have went and played for the team that was probably his first choice or second choice. I think he really wanted to play for L.A. With Sean McVay, or he wanted to play with Kevin O'Connell in Minnesota. And honestly, you can't blame Aaron Rodgers for that, all right? Those are 2 excellent head coaches with 2 really good rosters. Can't blame him for preferring those 2 options. But I do think he's happy here in Pittsburgh. I think he loves Mike Tomlin. I think he loves working with the guys that he has here in Pittsburgh. I don't know if he's going to regret coming to the Steelers. I think that Florio, frankly, is talking out of his ass, as he usually does. But, I think that he's very happy here in Pittsburgh. So, this really doesn't really matter, in my opinion. $2, again, from Bernard, says, could the Steelers get Dexter, or never mind, he says, and could as far as trade midseason. I don't know what that means, Bernard.
He's saying, could Aaron Rodgers ask for a trade, and he could ask for a trade this midseason.
Oh, I see what you mean. I don't think he's going to ask for a trade midseason unless the Steelers are really down in the dumps, like there's no chance they're making the playoffs, which I really don't think is going to happen. They're going to have to lose a lot of these next upcoming games versus. Frankly, it's probably the most favorable stretch of the Steelers' schedule coming up. You got the Patriots and a young quarterback this weekend. Then you've got Carson Wentz in Dublin in 2 weeks from now. Then you get the Browns, and then you get a Burrow-less Cincinnati Bengals team. So, the Steelers, very easily could go 4-0 or 3-1 over these next 4 weeks, especially if they can get this defense figured out. And when you're facing a stretch of these quarterbacks, over the next 4 weeks, there's no excuse for this defense to not figure it out and play the way that we expected them to play heading into the year. So I really don't think that there's going to be an Aaron Rodgers trade midseason. I just don't really see that happening. I'd put a very, very small percentage of that happening at this point. Another 2 from Bernard says, could the Steelers get Dexter Lawrence? If the Giants make him available, maybe. He's had kind of a slow start, so I'm a little surprised they haven't extended him yet. If he is available to be extended, he's got 3 years left on his deal, so there's like a 0% chance they trade him with 3 years left.
He signed a 4-year, $90 million.
He just signed a new deal. I believe it was last offseason.
Two off seasons ago.
So no, there's no way that he's arguably the best nose tackle in football, and he's got 3 years left on his deal, and the Giants would take on a shit ton of dead cap money if they trade him right now. So no, I think it was Noah Strackbein of Sports Illustrated throw this out there. I just don't really see this as a possibility unless the Giants don't believe Dexter Lawrence is worth the money anymore.
I did see something say that Lawrence is apparently frustrated.
Yeah, so that might be the angle that Noah's coming from there, that he's frustrated and might demand a trade out of New York. And if that happens, then I would be all in if I'm the Steelers. I wouldn't trade a first-round pick, which frankly I think is what they would want for somebody of this caliber. He's
even multiple.
He's one of the best defensive players in football. So, I think they're going to want at least one first-round pick, and I do not think the Steelers are willing to give that up. I think the most they'd be willing to give up is maybe 2 seconds, but they really want to use that first-round pick next year, maybe even the first-round pick in 2027 to be able to go and get their quarterback next spring. So, I think that they're going to try and find an in-house option at nose tackle, whether that's Keanu Benton plays better, whether that's Y.A. Black replaces him, whether that's another option that that doesn't exist on the roster right now. I don't know, but I would say that still the chances of getting Dexter Lawrence are pretty darn slim. Even if he is traded, I don't think the Steelers would trade what would be needed to go get him. $10 from Fluffy. He says, donate any raffle tickets. So $10 is 3 raffle tickets. So spam those me's down there in the comments section. Fluffy's giving away some raffle tickets for a Steelers Talk hat. We're currently at $32. Currently at $32 on the day so far. If we can get to 100, we're going to be giving away free raffle, or we're going to be giving away a Steelers Talk hat to one lucky member of the chat. So if you guys want a free raffle entry, spam those me's for the next 30 seconds before we get into our first segment of the day. Keep on going. I see Troy. I see Kevin, Michael, Electric Divergent, Troy, Matthew, Kyle, Clifford, Maxwell, Robert. We got Kyle. We've got Kevin, Joe, Troy, Rez, Ali. We've got Clifford. Who wants it here, folks? 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm going to give one here to Donna Elliott.
Okay.
I'm going to give one to Kevin Reed. I'm going to give one to Ollie the Reaper.
All righty.
Okay, so thank you, Fluffy, for donating those tickets. Let's get into our first segment here, guys, because we got a lot to talk about. 2 very in-depth segments to talk about today. Talking a lot about the defense, and I'm going to be speaking very truthfully about the Pittsburgh Steelers defense today. Talking about some of the things that they can improve on, some of the issues that they're dealing with, and maybe busting a couple of myths that are out there on Steelers Twitter right now. All right. So first segment today, latest Steelers news and rumors, talking about what Teryl Austin had to say in his media availability, talking about what Darius Slay had to say as well, talking about some other things as well in that news and rumors segment. Then I'm going to be telling the truth in our second segment today about the Pittsburgh Steelers defense, and a comprehensive look at the Steelers defense, what's going wrong, how to fix it, what Tomlin likes to do, and how it can still work. And then we'll finish up today's show with a mailbag. Again, guys, make sure you guys get down there and get your hashtag Steelers questions down there in the live chat room so you can get your question on today's show for free. All right, let's get into our first segment of the day here on Steelers Talk Live, the latest news and rumors surrounding the Pittsburgh Steelers. Today on Steelers Talk, a Steelers player unfortunately suffers a season-ending injury. We'll talk about that at the top of today's show. And then Teryl Austin, the defensive coordinator for the Pittsburgh Steelers, was saying the right things at his press conference today in terms of identifying some of the issues with the Pittsburgh Steelers defense, but I think we can all agree that actions speak louder than words. And then we'll finish up today's show with New England's biggest weakness on defense that Arthur Smith, Aaron Rodgers, and the Steelers offense can exploit this week on Sunday versus the New England Patriots in Foxborough. Welcome into the show, guys. Get us started today by clicking that thumbs up icon. It takes a half second of your time. It really does help out the channel, guys. It tells the YouTube algorithm that you enjoy our content and that they should push this video in front of other Steelers fans like yourselves. So if you want to help us grow, get us and get our videos in front of new audiences here, guys, and help us grow our subscriber base so we can get to 100,000 subscribers as soon as possible. We are so close. Make sure you guys click that thumbs up icon if you're a real one. All right, so now let's get into the season-ending injury here for interior offensive lineman Max Scharping. Now he's on the roster, or at least he was on the 53-man roster, but he was somebody that had not been active through the first two games. He has been an inactive player on the 53-man roster for the first few games, but now he has torn his ACL and he'll be out for the season. So I would say don't be shocked if they add depth on the interior of the offensive line, but it's not really going to affect the offensive line rotation on game day, at least not as of right now. It wouldn't surprise me at all if they bring in some depth at interior offensive line in the coming days to take Scharping's spot. But today, moving on here to the defensive side of the ball, defensive coordinator Teryl Austin has been under fire over the last several years, frankly, from Steelers fans, and he addressed the media today after a slow start for his defense here to the 2025 season. And honestly, I was listening to it today, and I thought he said a lot of the right things. And we're going to talk about a lot of things that he said today, but it seems like he has a firm grasp on what the Steelers defense is doing wrong right now on film and what needs to happen in order for it to turn around. But like I said, guys, at the beginning of today's show, I think that we can all agree that actions and results speak much louder than just saying the right things at a press conference a Thursday before a game, right? So we'll start here with this tweet from Nick Farabah. By the way, if you guys want to go follow Nick on X, he does some great stuff, some great beat work stuff for Penn Live. Great guy. Says, Teryl Austin says the Steelers have noticed some alignment issues on tape in their fronts and in the secondary. Added at times, they feel like they're losing on alignment before the snap, and that falls on him. Quote, we have to stop beating ourselves and making it too easy for them. In terms of the full quote from Austin, when he was referring to this is what he said. A lot of stuff that I talked about is we have to make sure we don't get beat before the ball is even snapped. If you don't make the right call, you don't line up correctly, you're going to be in the wrong spot when the ball is snapped. Now, I want to show you guys a little bit of an example here of what I'm talking about here and what Austin is talking about when he says that the team is out of alignment. So here it is early in the game, a 3rd and 7, 3rd and long situation. The Steelers have an opportunity to get the Seahawks off the field for a field goal attempt, or even if they get a sack here, put them out of field goal range. They're playing single high coverage here, and it's pretty clearly pre-snap, cover one man. Now, the issue with this is right here in the slot with Jalen Ramsey. He is aligned way off, all right, and he's playing with outside leverage. That means that he is lined up on the outside of the slot receiver, who in this case is Jackson Smith-Njigba, who I think we all know is a pretty darn good route runner. But the problem here is, guys, you're playing outside leverage with this slot corner, but there's no intermediate middle defender there, all right? You might see this guy right here, but he's actually in a man alignment versus a tight end that's on the line of scrimmage. So he does not have that middle of the field responsibility. So when the ball gets snapped, it's just an easy slant route for Jackson Smith-Njigba. He picks up an easy first down, and the Seattle Seahawks move the chains when this was just a very bad football play from the Pittsburgh Steelers. They Sam Darnold was able to really diagnose this right away, and any competent quarterback that the Steelers face, if they go out in this formation on 3rd and 7, they're going to be able to pick up a first down just about every single time. Now, the thing about this particular formation here, guys, is that it is a cover 5 blitz, which is allowing that middle of the field kind of vacation there. And, did you guys know that the Pittsburgh Steelers are actually top 5 in blitz rate to start this year? They're blitzing at around 40% of their defensive snaps. And, I think a lot of people on Steelers Twitter are saying stuff like, we need to blitz more. We need to be more creative. We need to get after the quarterback. We're not getting to the quarterback enough. Well, Teryl Austin actually addressed this in his press conference today and why the blitzing hasn't led to more pressure and sack production for the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. This is what Austin had to say. He says it almost doesn't do much for us, talking about the blitzing. It almost gets them first downs. But I did think that some of the execution of our pressures up front were really good, but we got what we wanted. We were able to get in and get some hits on the quarterback. We need pressure, coverage, all that stuff. It has to work together. Right now, we are just a little bit off in that area, talking about the coverage aspect of their blitzes. I think that what Austin is alluding to here is that Pittsburgh needs to make the quarterbacks think a little bit more. We just saw it on that first little snippet from the film that I just showed you guys. They're technically running a blitz there. It's a 5-man dog blitz is what the Steelers call it, with 5 people rushing the quarterback. But because you're giving Sam Darnold such an easy answer pre-snap, he can get rid of the football pretty much instantaneously. And if the quarterback can get rid of the football that quickly, it doesn't matter how good your pass rush is, guys. They're not going to get home no matter how successful a pass rush attempt is, okay? So that's another thing that I think Teryl Austin correctly identified. Another piece of good news here for the Pittsburgh Steelers is that it sounds like Cole Holcomb will play more this week with Peyton Wilson a little bit struggling on early downs. Cole Holcomb, I thought, had a pretty decent day outside of his first snap, which was absolutely embarrassing with him backpedaling in cover 3. But other than that, he looked pretty darn good in run defense, and the Steelers' run defense unit as a whole looked a lot better with Cole Holcomb in there instead of Peyton Wilson. Seems like Austin agreed with that, said today Cole went in last week and did a good job. He gives you a different physical presence. I like where he's going. I think he's trending in the right direction. Guys that deserve to be out there will be out there, and I would expect to see more of him as we move along here. So expect to see Cole Holcomb out there more, especially because I think it's going to take at least this week for the Steelers to ramp up new linebacker addition, Juwan Bentley, all right? That linebacker position, if you know anything about playing linebacker, there's a lot of stuff that you have to understand about defense, about the structure of the defenses that you run, about the terminology, about the communication. Linebackers have a lot of responsibilities, guys, in both run defense and pass defense, and it's going to take a little while for Bentley to pick that up. We saw Jabril Peppers get signed last week, didn't get ramped up in time to play over Chuck Clark on Sunday versus Seattle. I would expect kind of the same thing for Juwan Bentley this week. I would expect to probably see him more against the Minnesota Vikings in week 4. But the good news, speaking of Jabril Peppers, is that we should see him play more this week. Teryl Austin said that he's done a fantastic job ramping up, that he's a pro's pro. He gets the communication aspect of things. And honestly, guys, Chuck Clark did not look great alongside Juan Thornhill in the secondary last week versus Seattle. Getting a guy like Jabril Peppers in there who's an awesome run defender, who's a great tackler, honestly reminds you a lot of Deshaun Elliott and a lot of things he does for the Steelers defense in there. I think is gonna do a good service for the Pittsburgh Steelers defense this week, and it's gonna make this unit better. Also, Austin addressed the double crossers touchdown that this defense has surrendered not once, but twice to start this season. You guys might have seen this all over Steelers social media where people are saying it's the same exact coverage. It's a cover 1 coverage with the crossers, and they're giving up a touchdown. Week 1, it was versus Garrett Wilson. Week 2, it was against Torrey Horton. But Teryl Austin explained what happened last week and why they actually did address it during the week, but it was a blown coverage by Darius Slay. This is what Austin had to say on that incident. That can't happen, and it wasn't something that was unaddressed during the course of the week. So those are the things that I think sometimes as a coach it gets you a little off kilter, is when there's things that happen that you work on and they still occur in a game. Because we all know in this league, if you show a weakness in something, that it's going to continue to show up and keep coming at you. And we open the door to have those things, keep coming at us every week now. So that's why we were a little bit, pissed off and those things, and we have to do better with that. I think our guys are better than that. If I thought they couldn't do it, then we got the wrong guys in here. But I think our guys can do it. We just got to do it better. All right, so that touchdown that he's referring to with Torrey Horton on the double crosser concept, otherwise known as deep mesh or jumbo mesh. There's different ways to call that concept where you got the two deep crossers. And it's really a cover one beater. And a lot of people on Steelers Twitter are blasting the Steelers and the coaching staff for not adjusting. But Austin seems to infer here that this was a blown coverage by Darius Slay. So let's just kind of break this all down here one by one. All right, so we'll start here with this first snippet here, guys. We have to go back to week 1 when they gave up the touchdown for the first time. You guys can see here that the Steelers are showing cover 1 here with outside leverage on the outside corners, with the Jets playing a condensed split from shotgun. And then when they run this double crosser concept, essentially what it does is it puts this middle of the field defender in conflict, where essentially Justin Fields is going to throw the ball to the crosser that this free safety doesn't cover, because the inside cross is going to have the advantage versus these man corners who are playing in outside leverage. So the result, you guys can see here, I believe it was Jalen Ramsey here, as you go to the next photo there, Ponzi. Thornhill takes the other crosser here. That leaves Garrett Wilson one-on-one on Darius Slay here. And, of course, because of the outside leverage, he has him beat, and it ends up being a touchdown for the New York Jets. Then we get to week 2 here, and it's a very similar look, all right? It's the first drive of the game for the Seattle Seahawks, and they're not in shotgun, but they're under center. And it's the same look from the Steelers, right? It's still those same two outside corners and outside leverage with the single high cover 1 defender there in the middle there, in the post, right? And then the result ended up being the same exact thing, right? The two defenders are over here on this one, and then on the same side of the field, it literally looks like the same exact play. So when Steelers fans saw this on Twitter, they're like, what the heck? The Steelers don't adjust. Teryl Austin and Mike Tomlin, they don't make adjustments. But it's been confirmed here by the Steelers coaching staff and Steelers players now this week that it was actually a blown coverage by Darius Slay. All right, so here is what's called the mesh point here, where the deep mesh is kind of going across here. And what Slay is supposed to do right here is run with his man towards the sideline on this crosser that's coming across the field. All right, that's called a peel technique on what's called zombie, which is kind of a Dick LeBeau thing with their 3 deep stuff. Ryan Clark explained it here. We're going to go over his tweet here in just a second. But essentially what's supposed to happen is Juan Thornhill, the free safety, is supposed to cut this underneath crosser because he has the leverage against him, and then Slay is supposed to come off to take Torrey Horton, who's coming across the formation. But as we showed, he didn't do that. He just followed Jackson Smith and Jigba, and it led to a wide open touchdown for Torrey Horton in the first quarter. Ryan Clark, who of course played in the Steelers defense back in the day, explained what happened here. He said pre-snap safety has to identify the cut. On film, we can see Juan Thornhill confirming it with Darius Slay before the snap. He points at him, which is the cut call. He says you call it pre-snap based on the reduced split. Ideally, he flat foot reads it and cuts the low crosser. Slay pushes to the high crosser. It's game plan throughout the week. We called it zombie. It was a staple of Coach LeBeau's 3-deep system. This route is much more prevalent in today's game, though. So, it's good that I think it's a good thing here that, the Steelers aren't just sitting on their hands doing nothing. They did have a plan to address that deep crosser concept. And I also think that it's good that Teryl Austin is acknowledging the faults of this defense and is identifying the faults of this defense on film. But now I think we all agree that actions and results are going to speak louder than the words, right? They have to go out there and actually freaking do it and make the adjustments and make the plays that they just haven't made throughout these first 2 weeks. So I really, really hope that this coaching staff can figure things out this week versus the New England Patriots and really figure things out for the rest of this season, because it just simply hasn't been good enough through the first 2 weeks. So let me know, over or under down there in the comment section. Will the Pittsburgh Steelers give up over or under 23.5 points this weekend, all right, versus the New England Patriots? If they give up less than 24, this would be the defense's best performance of the season to this point. So type O for over or U for under. This will be the pinned comment on today's show. In just a second here, I'm going to tell you about our sponsor today at Prize Picks. And while I'm telling you about Prize Picks today, let me know over or under 23.5 points for the Steelers defense on Sunday. And with that, let's have word from our sponsor today at Prize Picks. And you and I, we both make decisions every single day, but most of those decisions don't get you paid. But on Prize Picks, being right with your decisions can actually get you paid cold, hard cash. Don't miss any of the excitement this season on Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. Football season is finally here, and you better believe I'll be getting in my lineups for all the football games this year. Tonight's Thursday Night Football versus the Dolphins and the Bills, and you better believe I'm getting my lineup in tonight. Prize Picks is simple to play. Just pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections. If you get your picks right, you could cash in. Prize Picks also puts their users first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. Prize Picks also offers Venmo, Apple Pay, MasterCard, and more for quick and easy deposits into your account this football season. And a new feature from Prize Picks that they introduced this season that I absolutely love is injury reboots. If one of your players leaves the game in the first half and doesn't return, Prize Picks will not count that as a loss. You guys can take a look at my Prize Picks projection for this weekend. I am taking multiple here on Jalen Warren. I'm taking the more on both longest run and total rushing yards. I'm taking the more on Travion Henderson rush yards, and I'm taking the free play on Patrick Mahomes passing yards. If you guys want to get your play in here, guys, you can do that right now by going to by downloading the Prize Picks app today on your phone for free and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. Now, earlier this week, Mike Tomlin said in his Week 3 press conference here that Caleb Johnson is losing his kick return duties after having that really crazy botched situation last week where they gave the Seattle Seahawks 7 points, which ended up being crucial in the grand scheme of the football game. And, now there's starting to be some people that are speculating whether or not Caleb is even going to get a helmet for this week's game, because if he's not providing value as a kick return guy and he's only getting like 1 or 2 or 3 carries a game, like is 1 or 2 or 3 carries a game really worth giving him a game day spot? So that's really going to be a big question mark for Caleb this week, is whether or not his workload, first of all, will increase with Kenneth Gainwell not looking too efficient in the run game to this point, and then B, not being able to do the kickoff return stuff. How much is that going to affect his status in terms of playing this week? But you know who else can really contribute on special teams? That would be Mr. Trey Sermon. He's contributed on special teams quite a bit for multiple teams at this point. And I certainly think that this is something that is pretty reasonable here, because Trey Sermon is somebody where if there's an injury, he can go in there and he can help out the run game as somebody that has experience as an NFL running back. But he also, I think, provides more value as a special teams player than Caleb Johnson does at this point. So even if you put Sermon in there, guys, you're not giving up on Caleb Johnson. All right, you're just giving him a little bit of a reset, a little bit of a breather for him to, really understand the business here in the National Football League and kind of give him a little bit of a reality check that he's got to really tighten up if he's going to really solidify himself as a mainstay on the Steelers roster, not only this season, but in the future. So let me know down there in the comment section, which running back 3 are you giving the helmet to this weekend? Are you going Caleb Johnson, type KJ, or are you going with special teams help here with Trey Sermon, type TS? Down there in the comments section. Now, before we say goodbye today, I do want to point out one very key weakness with the New England Patriots that the Steelers have to take advantage of this weekend. The 2 starting linebackers for New England, Robert Spillane, all right, former Steeler, and then Christian Ellis, are number 1 and number 2, respectively, in the entire National Football League in missed tackles. So there is a lot of missed tackles, specifically in the middle of this New England Patriots defense. And if you can get Jalen Warren out in space with these cats, they are not going to bring him down. All right. So the things that I would do if I'm Arthur Smith, number 1, exploit these guys in pass coverage when they want to play zone. I'm throwing it into their zone and I'm forcing them to make a tackle out in space. And when they play man, obviously I'm trying to get the ball out to the matchups that those guys are on as well. Then you get to Jalen Warren. I think you can get the ball out to him in space. Obviously, you can get him the ball via handing it off in the run game, and you try to scheme things up to make it one-on-one opportunities between Jalen Warren and these linebackers where Warren can use his juking ability, his contact balance, all the things that he brings to the table to make these guys miss. Because last week, man, against Seattle, he was awesome, all right? He had 18 total touches for 134 yards. That is way over 50%. of the Steelers' offensive production from their offensive weaponry for an average of 7.4 yards per touch. So that is really efficient stuff. Fortunately, he wasn't able to get into the end zone, but he has an opportunity to have an even bigger game this week versus the New England Patriots. Guys, I really believe that with all the missed tackles and really how lost this Patriots defense has looked through the first 2 weeks. Even the Miami Dolphins offense looked pretty decent against these guys last week. I think that this is an awesome opportunity for the Steelers to have a get-right game this week and Jalen Warren to go off yet again. So let me know down there in the comment section, will Jalen Warren have an even better game this week versus the New England Patriots? Give me a yes or a no down there in the comment section. I certainly think it's possible. He had a hell of a week last week. I think he could probably do it again. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. Thank you guys so much for making it to the end with me here in this News and Rumors edition of Steelers Talk. I know we went into the weeds there in the first segment or in the first section of today's show. So if you made it to the end of today's program, that makes you a real one. Make sure you click that subscribe button if you haven't already for our Steelers content on this channel. Absolutely free every single day. All right, Ponzi, so the first segment is now in the books. Our second segment today, we are going to be telling the truth about the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. Really a comprehensive look into the Steelers, what they like to run, what Mike Tomlin's defense actually is schematically. Talk about some of the myths that are out there about this defense on social media, and then talking about some of the issues and solutions that the Steelers can embrace to fix the problems that we have seen throughout the first 2 weeks here in Pittsburgh. What'd you think of that first segment there, Mr. Ponzi? Some interesting stuff there?
I think, honestly, like, looking at it, looking at those crossers routes. Here, I'll get on screen here in a bit. But, I mean, I didn't even see that. I didn't get to look at the film for the game last Sunday. But, like, come on, Slay, what are you doing there? It's the same play, basically, but it's just run under center.
Yeah, and what's frustrating, I'm sure what's frustrating for Teryl Austin and Mike Tomlin is that they coached this up during the week last week. They saw how they lost and how they got burned by Garrett Wilson on that touchdown against the Jets, and they said, okay, here's the way we're addressing this if we see this look this week. And then they got that exact look. Juan Thornhill and Darius Slay confirm it before the snap. You can see them point at each other on film, which is the indication that, okay, we're cutting this. This is when we're going to do zombie. And Darius Slay just follows JSN anyway, and he just leaves Torrey Horton wide open, and he completely leaves the defense and Jalen Ramsey out to dry. So, like, obviously Teryl Austin and this coaching staff need to drive home the point, and they need to get these guys on the same page because clearly on that particular play they were not. But obviously, this defense needs to play better, and we're going to talk about a lot of the things that they need to do better in this next video. But sometimes, man, like. Sometimes it's not all just coaching, not getting the scheme right or not making adjustments or all these things I keep hearing on Steelers Twitter. Sometimes it's the players not doing the things that they have been told and taught to do. Now, obviously, there's a certain level of accountability that the coaches hold for not getting those players to execute. But, at the end of the day, guys, man, I think that the negativity has really gotten to a certain point here on this defense. And people forget, man, obviously, this last 10-game stretch for the Steelers, Ponzi, has been awful, and we have to tell the truth about the things that they're doing wrong and the things they need to do better. And we're going to be doing that in our next segment here. But you also have to acknowledge that, the 36 games before this 10-game stretch was a really awesome stretch for Mike Tomlin and Teryl Austin on the defensive side of the ball. Now, you can chalk that up to T.J. Watt or great talent or whatever, not great scheme. But, like, the Steelers for 36 games, all right, from the middle of 2022 when they went on that tear at the end of the 2022 season all the way to the Ravens game in the middle of last season before they kind of shit the bed in the second half of the year. During that 36-game stretch, 2/3 of their games, all right, the defense was giving up less than 20 points. That is by far number one in the NFL during that stretch. So, like, I think people kind of forget about that, and people kind of say, this coaching staff can't coach defense. And it's like, that's not exactly true. Obviously, they haven't done the right things in the last 10 games, all right? But, like, I feel like I see so much on Steelers Twitter saying that this coaching staff can't coach defense when the Steelers lead the NFL over the last 18 seasons in top 10 defensive seasons. All right, 12 of them. That's 2/3 of your defensive seasons under Mike Tomlin. You have a top 10 defense. All right, I don't think you can go that long of a stretch with top 10 defensive level play almost year in and year out, 2/3 of the years you play, if you're a bad defensive coach. All right, that's the only thing I can say, Ponzi. I mean, like, obviously things need to be fixed, and we're going to be telling the truth today on the things that need to be fixed, but I also think that people say there's no chance that they can turn it around and this coaching staff is completely incompetent, when it's like, how about we give them a couple more weeks to see if they can figure it out? I just think that people are already giving up, and it's a little bit of a panic reaction.
Do you think that this is more because for this season in particular, but last season they did too, because of the addition to the secondary? I mean, guys that were gone or there for a while now being replaced by like Jalen, Ramsey, Darius. Do you think that's just the case because they don't know the communication, or do you think it's just a team issue?
Yeah, it's not an excuse. Especially if it's being coached up, it's not an excuse. All right, especially because these guys are veterans. Like, you get veterans in the building to prevent these types of mistakes. And listen, man, like, I'm somebody that's going to be completely honest in terms of the things that I'm seeing that's wrong on the film, and I'm going to be doing that a lot in this next segment. But I'm also going to try and be fair to Mike Tomlin and Teryl Austin and give them credit for the things that they do right, for the things that they have done right in the past. But I'm on record saying, Ponzi, that if they don't figure out this defense this year, and this defense is not good, and like they're in the bottom half of most metrics, Mike Tomlin should be fired at the end of the year.
You really think that they would let him go?
I don't know. It depends on the win-loss record. I really do believe that. If they win 7 games and they really underperform on both sides of the ball, I think that they would consider it. I don't know if it'd be a straight firing. It'd be more of like a quote-unquote mutual parting of ways. Is the way that I think that they would go about it. But like, if you're going into next year, man, you have the most expensive defense in the National Football League for multiple years on end. And like, you go an entire season of this defense not playing well, and you're going into a next season where you're drafting a new quarterback and you're going to be trusting your head coach to develop that young quarterback. I can't say that I trust Mike Tomlin if he can't get this fixed this year. So, I try to be fair. That's what I try to be. All right. I try to not get into semantics. I try to base my opinions based on what I'm seeing on the film, the actual evidence. And that's why we do what we do here on Steelers Talk, so you guys can be informed on that.
Now,
So, what's that? Go ahead.
I was saying, do you think that like any team would try to trade for Tomlin in that case?
Yes. Yeah, I think that that's a really good idea, actually. Like, if you win like 8 games this year, and like somebody comes calling saying, "Hey, we'll give you a first-round pick for Mike Tomlin," or even a second-round pick, I'm saying, take them. All right, we'll hire Brian Flores as the next head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. We'll poach probably Josh McCown or somebody else from that Viking system to come call our offense and develop our young quarterback, and we get an additional high draft pick out of it. I think that would be like a really good scenario. Now, I'm still of the belief that the Steelers are going to win double-digit games this year. I still believe they're going to make the playoffs, and I still think by the end of the season, this defense is going to be playing a lot better, where we're going to be looking at this team as a legitimate threat in the AFC playoffs once we get to January. All right? But if that doesn't happen, absolutely. You think about trading Mike Tomlin for, especially if you're going to get a high draft pick, 100% you can do that kind of stuff. All right, so right now we are at $50 in donations, so we're halfway to do the hat raffle here, guys. $5 gets you a raffle ticket. $10 gets you 3 raffle tickets. $20 gets you 10 tickets, plus your name on the Steelers Talk Gong. The Gong Squad is what we call it. $50, you get to buy a hat straight up. And then $250 total, we will bang the gong, all right? So thank you guys so much for your support. Also, a reminder that we will be getting into a mailbag here very soon. So if you have a question that you want to get on the show, if you want to call me an idiot for any of the takes that I make on today's show, if you want to thank us and give appreciation for the show, if you just want to get on the show in general today, guys, questions, comments, all that stuff, criticisms, whatever, you guys can use hashtag Steelers down there in the live chat room to be able to be eligible to get on the show for free today. And then if you super chat with the question, you automatically make the mailbag today. Okay, guys? So we really do appreciate all the donations that you guys send in. And I think we're about ready to get into our next segment here, Ponzi. Very, very in-depth video here, guys. This one's probably going to go on for a little while. You guys know me. I can get pretty nerdy and in-depth on these spotlight type of videos. But it's why I love doing this job, man. I love talking about football. I love getting into the weeds. I haven't slept much this week going over the film, going over all the different stuff because I want to figure out what's going wrong just like you guys want to know what's going on with the Steelers defense right now. So we're going to get into this next segment here, guys, where I'm going to be telling the whole truth, at least from my perspective, about the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. We're going to be talking about the issues, some of the potential solutions. We're going to be talking about Mike Tomlin's scheme and what it traditionally has been. And we're going to be talking about maybe some of the myths that are going out there on Steelers Twitter right now about this defense, about this coaching staff that I want to address on today's show. So what's that? Sounds good. Okay. Sounds good. Do we have the picture with it too? Picture didn't look. Okay, that's fine. Okay. So Ponzi tells me we're ready to go here on our next segment here, guys. Again, get your questions in. Hashtag Steelers down there in the chat to get your question on the mailbag. That'll be coming up here in about 20 minutes or so. But without further ado, let's get into our next segment here, guys. Let's tell the truth about the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. Today on Steelers Talk, we're going to be having a little bit of a difficult discussion here, Steelers Nation. I'm going to tell you the truth, at least from my perspective, about the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. There's a lot of different hot takes out there about this defense, what needs to happen, a lot of declarative statements about what this team already is just 2 weeks into a new NFL season. Some people already declaring that this defense sucks, can't be fixed, and it's going to be the doom of the Pittsburgh Steelers here in 2025. Today, I'm going to be taking a little bit more of a nuanced approach here. We're going to look at some film. We're going to be looking at what Mike Tomlin likes to do from a schematic standpoint, talk about some of his failures and also some of his successes as the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers, talk about some of the issues we're seeing on the film through the first 2 weeks here in 2025 and some potential solutions for those problems here in the weeks to come. If you guys want in-depth, nuanced Steelers coverage here on YouTube every single day, that's what we try to provide for you guys here on Steelers Talk every single day. I really put in a ton of hours, guys. I don't know if you guys have noticed. I haven't even shaved this week because I've been up all night grinding the film, trying to figure out what the hell is wrong with this Steelers defense. And I think that we have at least some answers here on today's show. So if you appreciate the time that we put in here and you guys want that nuanced coverage here that doesn't get too much into panicking or anything like that, make sure you guys click that subscribe button right now for nuanced Steelers coverage. So the first things first, and this has to get out of the way immediately. The defense is underperformed, and the defense has not been good enough to start this season. All right, plain and simply. The expectations coming into this year was that this defense was supposed to be, to use Mike Tomlin's term, historic. All right, and we've heard guys like DK Metcalf say this is the best defense he's ever seen. We've seen Juan Thornhill saying this could be the best defense of all time. And they go out there in the first 2 weeks and they give up at least 24 points a game, all right, and they gave up over 30 to the New York Jets, who could barely move the football against the Buffalo Bills. All right, so there's been some issues with this Steelers defense, and frankly, the issues have gone past just the first 2 games this year. You can extend this out to the Cleveland Browns game on Thursday Night Football last year, and if we extend it out for the last 10 games, every opponent the Steelers have played have gotten 300 yards of offense, all right? Every single opponent, all right? Put them all together. They're averaging 27.5 points per game. All right, so approaching 30 points a game over the last 10 games for Teryl Austin, Mike Tomlin, and this Steelers defense. Now, to be clear, Pittsburgh's defense has been the most expensive defense in the NFL for many years. All right, so the fact that this defense is over $20 million more expensive than the next most expensive defense in the NFL, and they have had this bad of a start to this season, and they were as bad as they were to finish last season, is unacceptable, especially for this organization and this head coach who claims that the standard is the standard. So what's really weird to me about this whole situation, guys, is that before this 10-game skid where the defense has undeniably played poor football under Mike Tomlin and Teryl Austin, they went on a really incredible 36-game stretch of over 2 years worth of games of defensive football where they were the most dominant defense in the National Football League, all right? And, you can see here from Week 10 in 2022, that was kind of when they turned their season around after a really slow start there in 2022, all the way to Week 11. That was the Ravens game at home last year in 2024. That's 36 regular season games in between those games, all right? Pittsburgh gave up 20 points, all right, or less than 20 points in 24 of 36 of those games. So in 2/3 of the games you were playing, you were giving up less than 20 points. That is by far the most in the National Football League, and that is really a dominating type of stat line that Teryl Austin and Mike Tomlin were putting up for, like I said, over 2 years' worth of football games for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And the truth is, guys, with the Pittsburgh Steelers, they're really relying on getting that back. They're really relying on this defense being elite, a team that shuts teams down if they want to win a Super Bowl. And if they can't do that, and if this defense isn't great, and this defense maybe even if this defense isn't elite, they might have to be a top 3 or top 5 defense in the league this year to even have a chance to hoist a 7th Lombardi trophy. And to this point, in the first 2 weeks of the season, it simply hasn't been good enough. And if it continues, they're going to have no shot to win a Super Bowl this year, or honestly win a playoff game. Like, if you want to win a playoff game this year, this defense is going to have to play a lot better. And because of that, I believe that the clock is ticking on head coach Mike Tomlin. All right, and this is where we get honest with Coach T. And I'm somebody that thinks Mike T is a good football coach, is a good leader and motivator, but frankly, this coaching staff has fell short over the last 10 games, and if they have this much talent and this much money on this side of the football, and Mike Tomlin and Teryl Austin can't figure it out by the end of the season, this team misses the playoffs, or this defense finishes bottom half of the league in most defensive categories, I think you got to find somebody else and a new voice in this locker room that can actually fix this defense moving forward and lead this organization to greener pastures. But with that said, I'm somebody that's not saying it's over. They have to fire him now. He can't have the rest of the season. I'm not one of those people on Steelers Twitter overreacting at this point. I still think there's time to fix this, but time is certainly running out. I believe he has to the end of this season to figure it out, or else if I'm the Pittsburgh Steelers, I would move on from Mike Tomlin. Now, still to come here on Steelers Talk, we're going to be breaking down Mike Tomlin's scheme, what he likes to do from a schematic standpoint, some of the weaknesses and also the strengths. Then we're going to be talking about some common myths that I see on Steelers Twitter and even in the comments section about the Pittsburgh Steelers defense and this coaching staff. And then we'll be diagnosing what's wrong with the Steelers defense so far on film here in 2025 and some of the solutions that I have come up with to fix those problems in the weeks to come. But before we get into the rest of today's show, guys, I want to give a big shout out to our sponsor today at Mando Whole Body Deodorant. You guys know the feeling. It's game day, and you've been working hard all week, and then the Steelers are not playing well on defense, and your lucky jersey, well, by the fourth quarter, it might be smelling a little too lucky. Let's be honest. Regular deodorant just doesn't cut it, and after a long day, things can get pretty right. But there's a real game changer, and that is Mando Deodorant plus Sweat Control. This isn't just another cover-up, guys. Mando is one stick that does two jobs: powerful odor and sweat control. It actually stops odor before it even starts. No more masking, just freshness. This isn't your typical deodorant. It's clinical strength, 2 times better at controlling sweat than the standard deodorant. It controls both sweat and odor for 72 hours, and after just 12 hours, underarm sweat was reduced by 92% of participants. This stuff really works, guys, and I use Mando products every single day. I use their sweat control deodorant as well as their body wash every single day when I get ready for work, and I really love the bourbon leather scent, guys. It's absolutely fantastic. It keeps you smelling fresh all day long. They got a whole line of products that you guys can try out, and you guys can start, if you're a little bit worried about getting a whole bottle or a whole stick or whatever, you guys can get Mando Starter Pack, which is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick of deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice, like mini body wash or even deodorant wipes, plus you get free shipping. As a special offer for our listeners, new customers get 20% off site-wide with our exclusive code. Just use code CHAT at shopmando.com for 20% off site-wide plus free shipping. That's shopmando.com. Please support our show and tell them that we sent you. Mando's got you covered with deodorant plus sweat control. Say goodbye to sweat stains and hello to long-lasting freshness with our friends at Mando Whole Body Deodorant today. All right, so now let's first talk about Mike Tomlin's scheme and what he likes to do as a defensive mind and why this defense has been really as consistent as it has been, and also some of the issues that it presents for the Pittsburgh Steelers and some of the inconsistencies that it presents. Now, Pittsburgh is one of the only teams left in the National Football League that consistently uses a true 3-4 base defense. So you've got a nose tackle there in the middle, 2 defensive ends, which really act more as like defensive tackles. They're interior players in this scheme. Then you got outside linebackers playing on the ball as edge rushers, and then you got 2 inside linebackers there playing off ball. Then you've got 2 corners on each side, and then a free safety and a strong safety. You can bring down the strong safety if need be. All right, so that's the base 3-4 defense. And really any time that an opposing offense comes out in heavier personnel, or a 6 offensive lineman set, or a multiple tight end set, whatever the case may be, Pittsburgh is going to go to this alignment, all right, where you got 5 down linemen, you got 2 off-ball backers, you can put another strong safety in there if you want, and you can also put in the strong safety in the slot if need be, but also Pittsburgh plays, especially with the emergence of 3 receiver sets in the National Football League. Pittsburgh has had to adjust and play more 4-down fronts in their nickel formations, where they will still consider bringing down a strong safety to play in the box if they feel like a run is coming from these 3 wide receiver sets. But this is certainly something that the Pittsburgh Steelers have run quite a bit. Sometimes they'll still run like a 3-4 shell by bringing in a slot corner to blitz and be pretty much like a pseudo edge rusher from the edge there. They did that a lot with Mike Hilton. We'll talk about that role with Jalen Ramsey later in today's show. But in terms of coverage and pre-snap looks, the Pittsburgh Steelers love to run what is called 1 high safety coverages more than most defenses. Really, the modern NFL defense really loves to go 2 high safeties. They really love to disguise coverage, all that different stuff. But the Pittsburgh Steelers like to have that extra guy in the box to help defend the run. And, the problem with single high coverage, and a lot of Steelers fans point this out, is that you don't have as many options in terms of the coverage that you can play. Usually you're restricted to cover 1 and cover 3 type coverages. You can still do some creative stuff, and you can still do some rotations. And by the way, Mike Tomlin has been about as creative as you can possibly be from 1 high structures. He does a lot of non-traditional Tampas. He has done some really creative rotations from single high coverage pre-snap throughout his career. So the Steelers can still get creative and have gotten creative with post-snap rotations from single high coverage. But certainly there's not as many options as, say, a Mike Macdonald defense or a Vic Fangio defense where they play 2 high safeties on pretty much every single play. In terms of the coverage types that Mike Tomlin likes to run, cover 3 and cover 1 out of that single high structure is really the bread and butter of this defense. It has been for a very long time. Tampa 2 is a very important part of Mike Tomlin's past. He got his career started under Monty Kiffin with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who invented the Tampa 2, and the Steelers have certainly implemented Tampa quite a bit throughout Mike Tomlin's tenure here in Pittsburgh. And then, of course, with the Dick LeBeau influence here in Pittsburgh, the 3-deep fire zone defense has certainly made an impact on him, and he has implemented that into his defensive structure. By the way, the Steelers do play other coverages. They do play quarters. They do play 2 read or palms. They do play 2 high man. They're not only restricted to these coverages, but these are the ones that you see more often in this Mike Tomlin scheme here in Pittsburgh. So now that we have a good understanding of what Mike Tomlin likes to do from a schematic standpoint, let's talk about some of the common myths that I see on Steelers social media about Pittsburgh's defense and also their coaching staff. We'll start with Mike Tomlin himself, which is that he's not a good defensive coach, and he's never been a good defensive coach. I just don't know how you can say that when you look at the track record over an 18-year NFL career. All right, and we're going to be talking about a lot of the things that the Steelers are doing wrong on this video, especially so far this year at the end of things here. But Mike Tomlin has had 12 top 10 defenses in 18 years here in Pittsburgh. All right, you can't just fall into that as a bad defensive coach. You can't luck your way to 2/3 of the seasons you're with a team to getting top 10 defenses. Now, obviously, he's benefited from having great talents here. Troy Polamalu, Cam Hayward, T.J. Watt have certainly helped him get to those top 10 rankings, so to speak. And it's certainly a fair criticism that his defenses have not performed when it matters most, especially lately in the playoffs. But the idea that Tomlin doesn't know defensive coverages or that he doesn't know how to coach a defense, It's just false, guys. And you guys can see since 2016, all right, this is kind of since they started tracking EPA per play and success rate, or this goes all the way back, all right, since 2016. Once they started really recording this stuff, the Steelers' defense is 6th in EPA per play and 2nd in success rate. They're also way up there in turnovers forced. So, like, this defense has been a successful one for many seasons, even in recent seasons under the tutelage of Mike Tomlin and even defensive coordinator Teryl Austin. And, you know, I don't think Tomlin is absolved from criticism when this defense does stuff wrong. We're going to be honest on this channel, and we're going to tell you when those things are wrong, but also we're going to acknowledge the good things that have happened under Mike Tomlin here. It's not all bad, like a lot of people seem to think that it is. And he certainly understands defensive football, all right? That is something that I think is irrefutable based on his track record here with the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's the second myth here, guys, is that the Pittsburgh Steelers have a quote-unquote static defense, and they don't do post-snap rotations. It's all just super static, and they don't move, and, you know, they don't do all this post-snap stuff that we're seeing from other teams in the league. But did you guys know that on 34% of the Steelers' defensive snaps versus pass attempts versus the Seattle Seahawks, they had post-snap rotations, all right? So they were rotating a lot from cover 2, so 2 high safeties actually, down into a cover 3 look where the safety was buzzing down. That was a lot of post-snap rotation that they did in this football game. And they also played quite a bit of cover 1 robber, where you start with 2 high safeties and then a safety comes down into the intermediate zone. They played that quite a bit. They played cover 1 cross quite a few times as well, which is also a post-snap rotation. So, you know, this narrative that the Steelers just stand in place pre-snap every single play and they don't do any post-snap rotations, it's just not true, and it hasn't been true for multiple years. I mean, Mike Tomlin and the Steelers defense have been doing post-snap rotations for years at this point, all right? And this is somebody that has watched every single snap of Steelers defensive football probably over the last decade on film, all right? I can tell you from experience, this defense does do a lot of post-snap rotations, and they will get creative, especially on third down. And every cover 3 look, by the way, every single one that they ran versus Seattle had a buzzing safety. It came from 2 high safeties. And a lot of NFL teams are running this. It's a super modern look because it gives leverage and vision. It gives the leverage and vision advantage for the buzzing defender, the safety. It's much better than having a linebacker backpedaling out there and doing all that stuff. It's much, much more beneficial to have a buzzing safety, and the Steelers have embraced that, all right? So I keep hearing that this defense just stays in place and doesn't move and all this different stuff. That's just not true. They do embrace some of the more modern stuff. Then we get to the myth that the Steelers defense isn't creative. Now, maybe it's not as post-snap heavy as a Mike McDonald defense or some of these other ones that we're seeing, and maybe it's not quite as creative as maybe like a Brian Flores defense. But did you know that Pittsburgh ran 12 different types of coverage versus the Seattle Seahawks? In fact, their last 7 defensive coverage snaps were 7 different coverages. All right, so you finish out the game with multiple exotic looks, multiple post-snap rotations, and especially at the end of the game, they finished with 2 exotic looks versus Sam Darnold and the Seattle Seahawks. And, you know, so this idea that they just run like the same 2 or 3 plays over and over again, it's just not true. And, you know, the reality is, guys, a lot of great defenses stick to a few core concepts, all right? You look at the Legion of Boom. They played cover 3 match on every single play because they could, all right? You look at some of the Lovie Smith Bears defenses. They would play cover 3 on first down literally every play. Then they would roll the Tampa 2, and then they would have some third down stuff that they would do and mix in there, a couple blitzes, all right? And that would be it, all right? Really good defenses can afford to be a little bit more simplistic. The Steelers have kind of started this season with a little bit more of a simplistic game plan because they thought they had the talent to run that, but I think the Steelers coaching staff is starting to figure out that maybe they don't have quite the horses as those historic defenses had back in the day. Then we get to another myth here, which is that the Pittsburgh Steelers don't make adjustments, all right? And, you know, this is something that when I watch the film, I do see adjustments being made both in-game and then week to week. Just sometimes they aren't executed. This was a prime example this week where there was a double crosser concept that the Steelers have given up a touchdown 2 straight weeks. And then I think a viral social media, I think it was on Instagram, some film watcher guy put out there saying that's the same exact coverage. And even though on film it looks the same, it ends up being a blown coverage from cornerback Darius Slay. And that's, of course, confirmed by Juan Thornhill, who was the cutting safety on that play, and what's called a zombie adjustment on this double crosser concept. So sometimes, adjustments just aren't executed by the players. But in terms of that game against the Seattle Seahawks, I think 4 of the first 5 plays were cover 1 blitzes. And then the Steelers only played 4 more the rest of the game. So the Steelers certainly identified that their cover 1 blitzes were not working versus the Seattle Seahawks. And then Teryl Austin and Mike Tomlin made the adjustment to play less cover 1 as the game went on. Now, unfortunately, the Steelers' run defense couldn't stop Kenneth Walker in the second half. So obviously, that adjustment wasn't really picked up or seen as a positive thing because the defense was giving up a lot of yardage in the second half. But they were trying to do stuff in game last week to try and mix things up and get away from those cover 1 looks that they were just getting blasted by last week. And then another myth here, in my opinion, guys, is that the Pittsburgh Steelers don't blitz enough. I keep hearing this saying, we need to be like Brian Flores and we need to blitz more often, right? Well, the Steelers are blitzing at a top 5 rate in the National Football League right now. They're blitzing at about 40% of their defensive snaps. And that, by the way, that's about double what Brian Flores is doing in Minnesota. All right, the Vikings are barely blitzing over 20% right now because of some of the injuries that they have. They know they can't hold up on the back end if they are as aggressive as they used to be. So the Steelers are blitzing. It's just a matter of, I think Teryl Austin brought it up this week. They're just not aligning in the correct ways, and they're setting themselves up for failure pretty much pre-snap and giving quarterbacks easy answers so that the blitz can't get home. So, it's not that the Steelers don't blitz enough. They do it plenty. It's just that, the coverage on the back end, and we're going to talk about some of those issues here in just a second, need to be cleaned up. And then the final defensive myth here is that the Pittsburgh Steelers should have kept Brian Flores and fired Teryl Austin after the 2022 season. All right, this one kind of bothers me a lot, guys, because I keep hearing it. But Pittsburgh's defense finished the 2022 season on an absolute tear. You guys will remember that they won all those games in a row to finish the season. They led the league in sacks. They led the league in turnovers. They led the league in points per game allowed during that final stretch. And guess who was the defensive player, a play caller for the Steelers? It was Teryl Austin. You got to fire the defensive coordinator that where your defense just had that incredible run with? No, you're not going to do that. No NFL team in the history of the NFL would have said, you know what, Teryl, you had a great stretch here, great second half of the year. We were the best defense in the league. You're fired to keep this assistant coach. There's just no way that any team in the NFL would have done that. And by the way, Pittsburgh's 2022 defense was nothing like the Brian Flores defense in Minnesota. All right, actually, Flores stole his defensive scheme from Pat Narduzzi here at Pitt. It's all palms, and it's a bunch of different quarters and palms combinations, along with cover 0 and a bunch of pre-snap looks with linebackers walked up to the line of scrimmage. You didn't see that in Pittsburgh in 2022. In fact, the scheme for Pittsburgh in 2022 looks a lot more than the defense we're seeing from Pittsburgh right now under Mike Tomlin, because guess what, guys? It's Mike Tomlin's defense. It wasn't Brian Flores' defense in 2022. And then 2 things here, guys. Number 1, Pittsburgh wasn't going to fire or demote Teryl Austin after that awesome end to the 2022 season. You guys can have your opinions on Teryl Austin all you want. There's just not a single NFL team in the league that would fire their defensive coordinator after the stretch run that they had at the end of 2022. And then number 2, if Flores would have stayed on as the defensive coordinator here in Pittsburgh and they fired Teryl Austin, this defense would still be Tomlin's defense. I mean, Tomlin is in charge of the defensive game planning week in and week out. Now, maybe Flores has a couple ideas that they throw in there, but this would still be Mike Tomlin's scheme, and it would still look largely the same if Brian Flores was calling the defensive plays here in Pittsburgh. And to be completely clear here, guys, I love Coach Flo. All right, I am the biggest Coach Flo supporter. I've been saying for years that he should be getting another head coaching job. I love his defensive structure there in Minnesota. And by the way, if they fire Mike Tomlin at the end of the year, he would be the first one on my short list. The players respect him. He's got a great presence in the locker room, and he can bring over an offensive mind from the Kevin O'Connell, Sean McVay tree there from Minnesota to be the new offensive coordinator here in Pittsburgh. So this isn't a Brian Flores thing. It's more of just they're not going to fire Teryl Austin after the stretch run that they had at the end of the 2022 season. So let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. Would you be happy if Coach Flo is hired as the next Pittsburgh Steelers head coach? Personally, I would be thrilled if Tomlin had to be fired at the end of the season and they bring in Flores. I think his defense would work great here in Pittsburgh without Tomlin kind of superseding him. And I think that the offensive tree that he has access to is really good and could be really beneficial for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So give me a yes or a no down there in the comments section. And now let's get into the part where you guys probably will get the most value out of this, which is what the hell is going wrong with the Pittsburgh Steelers defense and how the hell do they fix it? All right, so let's get into some legitimate issues that I'm seeing on film that needs to be fixed. All right, so first up, there's not enough strength in the middle of this defense. Keanu Benton, in my opinion, I've been saying it on the show, is not a nose tackle. He's undersized. He doesn't have the functional play strength. And he's very disruptive. He can get into the backfield and make some nice TFLs happen. But in terms of being a nose tackle that sits in the middle of this defense, takes on double teams, has to hold the line of scrimmage, he just hasn't been doing that to start this season. So personally, I would rather go out and get Y.A. Black in this spot. And honestly, if you just switch Y.A. Black, who's been playing defensive end, playing next to Keanu Benton, and you switch those two, where you got Black at the nose and then Benton at defensive end, which would allow Benton to play more disruptively, that would be excellent. I think that would actually work, and I think that we talk about Benton as a much better run defender in that case because he's not being played out of position. So that's the first switch that I would make. And then another switch that I would make here, guys, is I would get a thumper at linebacker and put him in for Peyton Wilson on early downs. Now, the Steelers have brought in Juwan Bentley. They have Cole Holcomb on the roster, so hopefully this team makes that adjustment. But the Queen and Wilson every down kind of experiment, it just hasn't worked through 2 weeks. Patrick Queen has been out of position a number of times, but Peyton Wilson has been out of position even more. He's getting blasted off the line of scrimmage. They can't provide any push either. They're getting driven backwards, and when you combine a nose tackle getting driven backwards with Peyton Wilson and Patrick Queen, who are also getting driven backwards as kind of undersized linebackers, it's just not a good fit, man. Like, Landon Roberts played such a big role in this defense as the thumping early down linebacker, and I think the Steelers need to get back to that. So the way that I would adjust kind of the size element and the issue here in Pittsburgh is I would start Y.A. Black at nose tackle. I think, with his long arms, his 330-plus pound frame, his functional play strength, that's an immediate upgrade. And then, by the way, Keanu Benton at defensive end, I think, is an immediate upgrade over Y.A. Black because he's more disruptive than Y.A. is. So I think that is a double upgrade right there. And then I would play Peyton Wilson less on early downs, whether it's Cole Holcomb, whether it's eventually Juwan Bentley that gets in there. I think that you need to get somebody out there that's a better run defender than Peyton Wilson currently is. If you make those two switches, I think the run defense gets a lot better. Then when we talk about the passing game, I think you got to make quarterbacks work harder than the Steelers have kind of, put out there so far this season. All right. And plain and simply, there's just some instances here, guys, where the defense is just not aligned correctly and is giving opposing quarterbacks easy answers to get the ball out fast to get chunk yardage. So you guys can take a look here at this photo where it's 3rd and 7 early in the game for the Seattle Seahawks. It's a great opportunity for the Steelers to get off the field. They're playing a cover one dog blitz, which means 5 rushers, and with a deep safety, which means there's nobody in an intermediate zone here playing the middle. All right, this guy in the middle right here is playing a man alignment against a tight end that's lined up at the line of scrimmage. So with Jalen Ramsey playing way off the line and outside leverage, that allows Jackson Smith and Jigba over here to just cross his face on a little glance route. Darnold gets it out immediately, and he picks up an easy 10 yards, 11 yards, and picks up a first down. This is just bad defensive alignment that gives the defense easy answers, and the Steelers need to do a better job of not giving those easy answers to opposing quarterbacks and make them hold the ball for longer against this Steelers pass rush, who honestly have been doing a pretty decent job rushing the passer. It's just these quarterbacks have easy answers, and they're getting the ball out quickly. Another thing that I would do more than what I've seen in the first 2 weeks from the Steelers defense is I would play Jalen Ramsey more as a blitzer, all right? Back in the day, all right, Mike Hilton was an absolute menace. From the slot, blitzing, teams were literally adjusting their offensive philosophy to guard against Mike Hilton blitzes, all right? And Jalen Ramsey is more instinctive, he's bigger, he's stronger, he's a better tackler, and he's better in coverage than Mike Hilton ever was, all right? So if Mike Hilton could have the effect that he had as a blitzing slot corner that, offenses had to know where he was at all times on this defense, you got to use Jalen Ramsey in the same way, man. And if you can combine that with some rotating coverages on the back end, some fire zones where you're sending the corner off the edge and really start confusing people, that's really when I think this defense can start cooking with gas, all right? But then another thing here, and my final thing here, guys, that I want to talk about with legitimate issues with this team is you got to play more zone. All right. I think that right now the Steelers have been playing a lot of man. In week 2 versus Seattle, they ran 8 cover 1 blitzes, and almost all of them were not successful. And, I think that the Pittsburgh Steelers have been kind of approaching this season with a little bit of arrogance, saying we're so good that we can line up and beat teams in cover one with no disguises, nothing like that. We're not going to, play detailed football in terms of the easy answers that we're giving to opposing quarterbacks. Like, our pass rush is too good and our secondary is too good in man coverage, so we're just going to be lazy about it, and we're just going to play a little bit arrogantly. And that's just not working out. I think that hopefully, Mike Tomlin and Teryl Austin are learning their lesson here. But really, guys, making the quarterback think makes the entire pass defense better, and it makes every element of the pass defense better. If you're making the quarterback hold it for longer and process things after the snap, that's going to allow the defense to get home and the pass rush to get home and get more sacks, get more pressures, get more tip ball opportunities. But then also, it's going to help out the secondary as well, right? Because if you're making guys cover, and then also the pass rushes get in there, that's going to lead to more opportunities for turnovers in the secondary. So you got to make these quarterbacks think a little bit more than just, look at this, they're playing outside leverage in cover one and there's nobody in the middle of the field. Let's just throw it there. We got to have better answers than that to start this season, and the Steelers coaching staff needs to realize that as good as and as much talent as the Steelers defense has, they're not that good to play that caliber of football. And hopefully, guys, Tomlin and Austin have learned that lesson. I think that when they got all these players and Jalen, Ramsey, and Darius and all these guys, they said, we can just go out there, play cover one, and we're going to dominate just playing that stuff. And it's just that is not the case, man. This is not the Legion of Boom. All right, this is not the 85 Bears where you can just roll out there, run your thing, and they can't stop it. All right, you got to be able to get creative here, and we have seen Tomlin and Austin do that in the past. I laid that out in today's video. They're more than capable of fixing this thing from a schematic standpoint. It's just a matter of when and if they can do it. And hopefully it doesn't take them too long to do it, because time is ticking here in the 2025 campaign. So what say you guys? Let me know down there in the comment section. Will the Pittsburgh Steelers finish as a top 10 defense this year after their slow start? Give me a yes or a no down there in the comment section. I'm sure at this point in the year it's a little bit of a hot take, but I think they will finish inside the top 10 by season's end. Now, before I go here, I want to give you guys a little bit of a quote here from Darius, Super Bowl champion with the Philadelphia Eagles last year, and I think he had some wise words for the team and for the fan base here after a kind of a shaky start to this season. This is what Slay had to say earlier this week. He said, last year in Philly, we started off the same way last season, 1-on-1. We wasn't feeling like we were living up to the Philly standard. And next thing you know, we turn around after the bye week, number one defense in the league, Super Bowl champion. So I told our guys, man, keep our composure and let's be detailed. And remember, guys, Philadelphia was also coming off a late season collapse in 2023 last year. So not only were they coming off a collapse at the end of the season where they had a first-round playoff exit, but then they go into the next season, everyone's hyping up the roster, all this different stuff, and with a bunch of new players, and they don't get off to a good start on either side of the football. And people are talking about firing Nick Sirianni and all these different things and replacing Jalen Hurts. And they go on and win every single game Jalen Hurts starts and finishes for the rest of the year. So if that's a lesson to anything, guys, is that the first few weeks of the season, teams are very much still trying to figure out who they are. And that's exactly where the Pittsburgh Steelers are at. I still think they have more than enough talent to make this a legitimate top 10 or even top 5 defense by the time we get to January. And that is the moral of the story here, guys. I think you are a much different team in January than you are in September. I think last year with the Pittsburgh Steelers and the story of last year's season should tell us that. This defense was amazing the first 6 weeks of the season, and then they were terrible down the stretch. It's very possible that the Steelers can figure things out here, and they can really become the defense that they're capable of becoming down the stretch here if they can make some crucial adjustments. All right, that'll be it for today's show, guys. This is one of the longest videos we have ever made for Steelers Talk. I've been grinding the film all week trying to get you guys a comprehensive view of what the Pittsburgh Steelers are going through right now and how they can make it better moving forward, and why I still have hope for this team as we sit here right now heading into this week's game versus the New England Patriots. So I hope you guys enjoyed this content. If you want in-depth, nuanced content like this every single day on the Pittsburgh Steelers, that's what we try to provide for you guys every single day. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Until next time, guys, here we go, Steelers. Oh my gosh, I'm exhausted, Ponzi. I'm exhausted. Oh my goodness. All right, we're going to give you guys 3 minutes to get your questions in for the mailbag. Use hashtag Steelers or Super Chat to get on the show. Ponzi, your thoughts on that video?
It was long. but it was a lot of detail. I think he had a lot of great points in that. It's just like a lot of people want to flail around their arms like, oh my God, it's over, it's over. The Steelers are not going to do anything this year. But it's like, these are simple fixes that they got to make.
Yeah.
And, it's...
And by the way, we've seen this regime do it
Exactly.
a lot over the last almost 2 decades straight. Now, obviously, like we talked about, there's things to fix, all right? And if we're being honest with ourselves, like you can't just say, oh, Mike Tomlin, Teryl Austin are great coaches, they'll figure it out. No, we have to actually say, all right, 10 games in a row, 27.5 points per game allowed. That sucks, all right? Giving up 300 yards to every opponent you play. That sucks. All right, like some of the alignment issues that we talked about, especially in cover 1, just allowing these guys to go into the middle of the field pretty much unchallenged for easy chunk plays. Unacceptable. All right? But I think, and I hope, Mike Tomlin and Teryl Austin are figuring out that, the talent level on this team doesn't mean that you can just play cover 1 all the time and just sit there and expect it to work. Teams are, the teams on the other side of the ball, they get paid too, Ponzi. They get paid too. They get paid too. So, like, you got to be able to get creative. You got to, change the look pre-snap, maybe a little bit more than what they've done these first few weeks. The Steelers have shown throughout the years they can do that stuff, all right? And even last week, they changed the look. What was it, 11 times?
I believe you said 12.
11 or 12 times last week they had a post-snap rotation. So, and then once they figured out that cover 1 shit wasn't working, after pretty much the first drive, they got off of it, right? So, listen, man, it certainly hasn't been great. I think it all starts with the run game because, if you're scared of the run and you can't stop the run, that opens up the play-action game. That opens up a lot of stuff for opposing offenses, and we talked about how you can fix it. I think really a big switch there, Ponzi, would just be moving Keanu Benson and Y.A. Black, just switching positions.
Yeah, I mean, I think, obviously nose tackle has been kind of a big issue. A lot of people were like, okay, well, one man can't ruin a defense. But if you don't have any defensive pressure from your nose tackle who's getting driven back all the time, they could just run up the middle. That's it.
Exactly. That's what we've been seeing the first 2 weeks. It's just it's Keanu Benson, it's Peyton Wilson, and it's Patrick Queen getting driven backwards, all right? And until you find players and you find certain alignments and all these different things to be able to stop that, teams are going to keep doing that. And we're going to see the struggles that we have seen from this team throughout the first 2 weeks. So that really is the foundation. But we have certainly seen, even last year, all right, as early as last year, first half of the season, the Steelers had like the best run defense in the league, all right? And that was with Keanu Benson actually as their nose tackle. So, like, they can figure it out. It's just a matter of when they figure it out or if they figure it out. And if they figure it out too late or if they don't figure it out at all, I have no problem saying Mike Tomlin should be fired. I have no problem saying that. But I also have no problem saying that if you're saying that this season's over and this defense can't improve and this defense can't play better, I think you're overreacting. I have almost 2 decades worth of defensive film and stats and a track record to back up my claim there. So I think that obviously, especially relative to the expectations, right, Ponzi? Because all we heard all offseason was this defense was going to be awesome and this defense was going to be unbelievable and historic and the best defense we've ever seen in some cases. Some people are saying that. And it's been far from that. So, like, if the expectation is up here with the talent level here in Pittsburgh, but then, the play is down here, I can see why people point to the coaches. All right, I really do understand why people are blaming the coaching staff, and to some degree they should be blamed. Absolutely. I think they went into this season with a lot of hubris, but hopefully they've learned their lesson and they get back to playing a little bit more creatively like we've seen them do over the last in the past when they've had better defenses and they've been more dominant and they've actually done a really good job limiting points from their opponents. So that's where I'm at. $2 from Bernard Nixon.
Oh, I'm just looking at questions for the mailbag.
Oh, okay.
We can catch up on Super Chats if we want, though.
Yeah, let's catch up on Supers. By the way, we are $40 away from the hat raffle, just so you guys know.
I thought I heard some Venmos.
Oh, we do have some Venmos. I will send you what we got here. If you want to start reading off some of the super chats
Bob
there,
Block
Ponzi.
said, donate all my raffle entries too because Fluffy inspired me. So what I'm going to have you do is spam me if you want a free raffle entry. Spam those me's.
Spam those me's if you want a free raffle entry. Shout out to Robert Locke for donating all those tickets.
The person who spams me the most will get a free raffle ticket.
All right, spam those me's. Let's keep rolling here with the super chats. I see Eric. I see Josh. I see Noah, the Steelers fan. I see Noah. I see Josh, Noah, Eric. Keep spamming those me's, folks. If you want a free raffle entry, because we just got a Venmo, which is going to lock in this Steelers Talk raffle. D'Lo says, Jack Sperry, can you be our OC? No, I like my job. Goodness gracious, man. With the fan base, with this fan base, no way.
Man, they'll be calling for your head by week 3.
No way am I coaching, man. No way. I mean, I love this fan base. This fan base cares. All right, they're passionate. All right, but with that passion and that desire to win every game, no matter what, or the season's over kind of mentality, no way do I want to be the coach, man. I would much rather be on this side of the camera talking about, judging other people and their coaching, all right? So appreciate you, D-Lo. But a $50 super chat from Robert Locke. Bang! Robert with a 50. And he says, this one's rolling in for giving away a hat away, one raffle pick at a time. All right, so we're going to give away 2 hats today. Robert just locked in one, and then he's also, because he put in a 50 and he already has a hat, that means we're going to be giving away 2 hats at the end of the show here, guys. So spam those me's if you want a free raffle entry. We're giving away 3 right now. I'm going to give one to Noah, the Steelers fan. I'm going to give one to Jack Hay.
Hey.
And shout out to Estevan, by the way. We're going to get to your Venmo here in just a second. Estevan won our hat raffle, I believe, last time. Eric Gender is the third one that I want to give away right there.
All righty.
Eric Gender, you are in.
I'll get some of these other Venmos in here.
All right, so we got a couple more $5 Venmos to get in on the raffle today. We got a $5 Venmo from Donna Elliott. Shout out to Donna. And she says, let me see here. I feel like they really need a fresh defensive plan. It's pretty bad. Dick LeBeau was about 70 and was one of the best defensive coordinators that they had. Dick LeBeau was a football genius. He really was, with the 3 fire zone stuff. The zombie concept that we've talked about on today's show, where Slay is supposed to come off his man, the corner's supposed to cut it. That was part of the Dick LeBeau defense, even back when Ryan Clark was still playing. That was before all of these jumbo meshes and deep crosser concepts were really popularized by really Kansas City and Buffalo about a half decade ago. So, I mean, Dick LeBeau was way ahead of the curve with a lot of different stuff. So, and then Tomlin has implemented, the Tomlin defense is the best way that I can describe this, Ponzi, is that it's a hybrid between the Tampa 2 defense along with the Dick LeBeau kind of fire 3 zone defense. It's kind of a hybrid between those two.
Yeah.
And if you guys look back to Monty Kiffin's Tampa's defenses there, where they ran the Tampa 2, you want to guess the number 1 coverage that they ran during those years?
I don't know.
Almost 50% of their plays called was cover 3. Not cover 2. Cover 2 was pretty much just like a 3rd down or a 2nd down play call for them. When they were in passing down situations. All right, so they based out of cover 3 the same thing the Steelers base out of, or at least what they used to base out of. Now they really base out of cover 1, at least to start this season, Ponzi. And Tomlin said before the year, hey, we want to run more man coverage this year. We want to go up one-on-one against anybody in football. Well, guess what, man? When you don't have Joey Porter Jr. out there, when you're playing guys in the slot, outside leverage with no help on the inside, you're going to get fucking burned, man. Like, you got to, I feel...
adjust this at some point.
I mean, it's just, you can't have that much arrogance being a defensive play caller, and I think the Steelers got caught, smelling their own farts, loving their personnel a little bit too much. and hopefully they can make the adjustment here to do some of the stuff that they did when they didn't have as much talent on this defense, and frankly were a lot better. I mean, they've like at one point you had Malik Reed out there, and he was like a starter, and he was a good player for this defense. Malik Reed was terrible pretty much everywhere else he went. So like this defense, when it's run right, it can be really, really good. It's just the start of the season, they've kind of gone off the beaten path a little bit. So hopefully they can get back to the ways that they've been in some previous seasons. But then Estevan Flores with a 5. Appreciate you, Estevan. Says, I won a hat last stream from a raffle. How do I get about getting that? So Estevan, send a comment. All right, send a comment on that Venmo.
Oh yeah.
With your shipping address. Or another way you can do it, Estevan, is you can send me an email at sperry@chatsports.com. Ponzi's going to put that down there in the L3, down there in the bottom of your screen.
Here you go, Estevan.
So you can either put a comment on that Venmo that you just sent me, Estevan, with your shipping address, or you can send an email to me at sperry@chatsports.com. With your shipping address, and we'll make sure to get that hat to you, Estevan. Appreciate your support. All right, we got
super chats to get to.
Got some more super chats here before we get into the mailbag. It says $2 here from Noah. It says, if our run game's still bad, should we trade Kamara? Trade for Kamara, I think is what he's asking
he
for.
Clarified again.
I mean, I'm open to it, but like, what's the price tag? I have to know like what the run game situation looks like at the deadline. I don't see that.
I really like Jalen Warren, too.
Yeah.
Jalen Warren hasn't been the problem.
Well, I think in this case, you'd be thinking about getting Kamara as your number 2 option.
Well, that's true, but would you rather use that draft pick to address something else?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, obviously the hope is that Caleb Johnson eventually takes over some of the rushing responsibilities this year, and Gainwell kind of gets phased out. But Jalen Warren is a really good player, man. He really is. He's a dynamic playmaker, and I think we're going to see the Steelers' offense prioritize him more because Aaron Rodgers has taken a liking to Jalen Warren. When Rodgers wants the ball to get to a certain player, the ball is going to be going to that player. So keep an eye on Jalen Warren, especially if you own him in fantasy. I think he's going to explode here over these next few weeks. DJ reacts with a 5, says, I'm honestly sick of the same BS, man. It's old but tiring. This team has an excuse every time, end of year. When will they finally take accountability? Listen, man, I think, we just got to see the results in the postseason. And, in terms of the accountability, I think the first person that will tell you that they have underperformed in the postseason and it's unacceptable, first three people that will tell you that. Mike Tomlin, Omar Khan, and Art Rooney. Those 3 people will be the first ones to tell you that they haven't been good enough. All right, we heard it from Mike and Omar multiple times this offseason. This is why they made all the moves that they made. Is they're trying to make a push so that we don't have those same results at the end of the season. And, if you know anything about Mike Tomlin, man, I don't really see him as like an excuse maker necessarily. And I think some Steelers fans will laugh at that, but he doesn't really go out there and make excuses. Like, he's usually pretty darn. He goes up there and says, we were not good enough, all this different stuff. There's no excuse. Like, he's usually the no excuse guy, in my opinion. And I'm sure a lot of Steelers fans will disagree with that in the chat. But I think what people really appreciate in the locker room about Tomlin and why these players consistently go to bat for him and why these players love playing for him, and that's an undisputable fact, is that these players love playing for him. All right, and players from other organizations want to play for him. Part of that is, his approach, and his approach very much is enough talking. Let's go out and work. All right, and Mike Tomlin said it when they signed Aaron Rodgers. He said, "We will make no bold predictions. We're just gonna go out and work. We're gonna let our play do the talking." And unfortunately, the play and what the play has been saying hasn't been too flattering, especially on defense over the last 10 games. But is Mike Tomlin the type of guy that that reverts to semantics and doesn't care about trying to fix things? Like, I just don't see that as Mike Tomlin's type of personality. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but that's my take on him. $2 from Bernard says, Jack, do you think the Steelers beat the Pats? I do. I think they beat the Patriots this weekend. Now we'll see. Obviously, the defense has to play better. I said it in my first segment today. It's nice that Teryl Austin is saying all the things that he's supposed to be saying, and that the things that he's identified on film are the same things I'm identifying on their film that they need to get better at. But at the end of the day, it comes down to execution, and can you get these guys to execute the defense that you're calling, and can you set your guys up for success? I think those two things have been missing and disconnected from the Steelers defense to start this season. Either A, players aren't executing their role, or B, the coaching staff is not putting them in positions to succeed with the way that they're aligned. Those two things need to get better. If they don't, it's going to be a long season here in Steelers Nation. But I really do think that, we've seen this coaching staff put together good defenses before. We have. And I know that's not a popular thing to say in Steelers Nation right now because it hasn't been good recently. And this is a what have you done for me recently league. But, we've seen an 18-season sample size, and we've had 12 top 10 defenses in the league from Mike Tomlin here in Pittsburgh. So that's 2/3 of the years you're having a top 10 defense. That's pretty darn good. So certainly not giving up on Tomlin, but certainly acknowledging he needs to turn things around here. Same thing with Teryl Austin. Let's get into the mailbag here, guys. I can't wait to see your questions. Appreciate all of your guys' support. Let's finish out today's live show with your questions on today's Q&A. Welcome into the Steelers Talk Mailbag. I am your host, Jack Sperry. Today, we are going to be talking about your questions. We're going to be addressing your questions on the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's been kind of a shaky first 2 weeks this year. Heading into this week's game versus the New England Patriots, I want to see where you guys are at, what questions you have for me, and I love having this two-way dialogue with you guys every single week. We film these mailbags every single Thursday on our Steelers Talk live shows. If you guys want to get a question on a future edition of the Steelers Talk Q&A, you guys can watch our live shows on Thursdays starting at 5 p.m. Eastern Time and get your questions in for free. So join the most interactive Steelers community anywhere on YouTube. We go live twice during the week and then again on game day. We also put out daily and free content on this channel every single day. All right, so now let's get into the questions, starting with JT Clover says, how much would you want TJ to move on Sunday? So I think he's asking in terms of moving around formationally. Listen, man, I think the right tackle position is going to be very, very vulnerable for the New England Patriots. Now, I think you want to move him around enough to make the Patriots guess on some things. But, I think I've seen a lot of people say just put him on the other side and it's magically going to fix the run defense. Guys, they're going to just run away from T.J. Watt no matter where he's lined up. If you put Watt in the middle, they're going to run outside off tackle. If you line them up to the right, they're going to run left like they have over the first 2 weeks. If you line them up over on the other side, then they're going to run to the right. So, T.J. Watt is just such a good run defender. He is the number one graded PFF run defender among edge rushers through the first 2 weeks. And, that's why they're running away from him, because he's one of the best, if not the best, run defending edge rusher in the league still, even at his age. So we'll see how much they move him around, but I think with Morgan Moses dealing with an injury this week, he's questionable to go. And if he can't go, that offensive line depth there at right tackle for New England is putrid. So that right tackle position, that position that he usually lines up against, should be pretty advantageous for him. So hopefully the coverage on the back end can give him a little bit more time. He's been getting early wins. It's just the quarterback's getting the ball out of his hands so quickly because of the coverage on the back end that the Steelers have been running these first 2 weeks. And I'm hoping that this Steelers coaching staff can wake up a little bit and give this pass rush a little bit more time to get home. Because I think if they do that, we might be seeing fireworks. Then we get to Eric Gender, says, who on the Patriots offense do you think will be the biggest problem for Pittsburgh's defense? And who on the Patriots defense will give the offense the biggest problem? Good question, Eric Gender. For the offense, Travion Henderson hasn't gotten a ton of carries or a ton of run these first 2 weeks, but you look at the two guys that have beaten the Steelers on the ground the first 2 weeks. Slasher types, Breece Hall and Kenneth Walker, really explosive guys, and that's what Travion Henderson is, right? So if there's going to be a player on this offense for New England that is going to be a big problem, I think it could be Travion Henderson. Now, obviously, Drake May, if he plays a terrific game or if you give him easy answers, he's going to take them. So obviously, Drake May and his skill set will be a problem as well. But the guy that can truly do what Kenneth Walker and Breece Hall did for their respective teams, obviously, I think that Travion Henderson is their more explosive back. So keep your eye on Henderson. Then on the other side of the ball, Patriots defense, the guy that can give this team the most issues is probably Christian Gonzalez, I would say, just because he can man up DK Metcalf and probably take him away more often than not. That is good. That's a tough ask going up against guys big as DK for anybody, but Christian Gonzalez is legitimately a top 5 corner in the game, in my opinion. So he can take away anybody. You're going to have to distribute the ball a bit more this week, in my opinion, and not have to rely on DK. Not that DK has been stellar these first 2 weeks, but I do think Rodgers will have to rely on some other weapons to get the job done this week. Then we got one from Meany. It says, Jack, with rumors targeting Tyreek Hill as a trade candidate for us. If Miami continues this trajectory, Jalen Waddle may be a better fit, and the price if Finns do a fire sale. Your thoughts? Well, according to Mike Florio, and guys, I do not trust Florio's word on a lot of these things, but he said the Steelers are no longer in on a Tyreek Hill trade because of his off-field antics. I find it hard to believe the Steelers were not aware of his off-field antics beforehand, so I don't know. So if that's the case, they were just never in on him. So I don't know how much I trust that report from Florio. But Jalen Waddle, younger player, I don't know if Miami's going to want to let him go. Also, they gave him a contract extension, I think it was last year. So I really don't think it makes a whole lot of sense to trade Jalen Waddle. Makes a lot more sense to trade Tyreek Hill, in my opinion. Kind of a cancer in the locker room for them. Older player, big contract, get him off the books. So I'm not sure, Meany, if Jalen is going to be a legitimate possibility for us. Elevate LT says, can the Steelers get Chris Jones if the Chiefs suck this year? If you're talking about trade deadline, I don't think the Chiefs are going to suck that bad, man. Like they've been very competitive against 2 very good teams. Most people have the Chargers and Eagles both in their top 5 in their power rankings, and just a couple of tough breaks led to those not going the other way. They could very easily be 2-0 against 2 of some of the best teams in the league, right? So maybe some of their fourth quarter luck has run out. Maybe they used it all last year when they won all those one-score games. But yeah, I don't really see Chris Jones being made available. If he is, go out and get him if you can. The only pick I'm not willing to give up, no matter what, is next year's first-round draft pick and 2027's first-round draft pick. Those are the only 2 picks that are 100% off the table for me for any player. So I guess we'll see what happens, but I would say highly doubt it, Elevate. What say you guys? Let me know down there in the comment section. What player, if any, should the Steelers trade for this season? Who's a guy that you want them to target here before the trade deadline this year? This will be the pinned comment on today's show. Let me know what you guys are thinking down there in the comment section when YouTube throws this ad break your way. Got one from my man Czar Craig. Says, if Juwan Bentley plays really well, does Malik Harrison get waived when healthy? I don't think so. I think Malik gives too much value as a special teamer. I think they'll probably waive Carson Bruner as the guy that they'd prefer to waive. Low-level draft pick. If someone picks him up on waivers, that would be unfortunate because I'm sure they'd want to keep him on practice squad, but I think that's a risk they'd be willing to take. But Harrison, I don't really see him getting cut. Really good special team player. And then also if Bentley gets hurt, Harrison is also another thumper type of guy. He's not quite as good, but he's a good backup thumper in that role. So I think they want to keep him. Kevin Reed says, if the O-line continues to struggle this season, do you think they spend more draft capital in the early rounds on next year's draft? Certainly possible. It's also possible they go out in free agency because here's the thing, Kevin. If you're looking for starting offensive tackle talent in particular, you usually got to find it in the first round. If you're looking for a person to start right away, definitely got to get him in the first round. So if you're replacing Broderick Jones and he's done, you're going to have to use your first-round pick on Broderick Jones' replacement, or you can go out in free agency and get one. So right now, I would say if they're replacing Broderick, free agency is actually probably the more likely option, especially because you have another younger player on the other side in Fautano. So getting a little bit of balance between veteran and younger player might make some sense. So honestly, I think left tackle or right tackle might be one of the bigger needs and one of the bigger targets for the Pittsburgh Steelers in free agency next year. Got one from Truth Thong. What a name. Says, does Calvin Austin impress you? On film, yeah, he does. Calvin reminds me a lot of guys like Darnell Mooney and Tank Dell, where they're smaller receivers, but they threaten to all levels of the field. Obviously, Calvin is awesome after the catch, and he's got great vision, so you can send him on a shallow crosser, and you can get him the ball out in space, and he's just got runaway speed and great vision when he's out in space. But then he's also got some really great wiggle as a route runner and obviously great speed to run away from guys. So he's open pretty consistently on film. And then he can obviously beat you deep and take the top off the defense with that 4.3 speed that he's got. Plus, he's got better hands than people give him credit for. He's made some tough catches. Remember that 50-50 ball back shoulder in week 1 versus the Jets? He's been doing that quite consistently, going back to 2024. Made some really tough catches for Russ last year. He's not going to be much of a run blocker, but as a receiver, I think that he is potentially a legitimate number 2 guy. And we saw that come out in week 1. Week 2, there were some opportunities to get him the football. The play where Aaron Rodgers got ripped down by his horse collar and it wasn't called. Calvin was streaking towards the end zone for a touchdown, and he was throwing it to him. So we might be talking about Calvin having another nice corner route touchdown if that play doesn't happen with the horse collar on Rodgers. But Calvin Austin third. I've been saying it for 2 years. Really impressive on film. And I think that he's going to continue to show that he's capable of being this team's number 2 receiver. Before we get to the rest of today's questions, let's have a word from our sponsor today at Prize Picks. You and I, we both make decisions every single day. He throws with great anticipation. He's just a gamer, man. And you can see when he's in those close games, like that close game against Clemson in the season opener, like you can just see the intensity, the focus. That's the level of competitor that you want in your football team. And then also, here's another added benefit. We've talked about the Cognize VR technology before, and the Steelers potentially implementing that. Garrett Nussmeier uses that Cognize stuff at LSU, just like Jaden Daniels did. So getting a guy that can bring that Cognize stuff here to Pittsburgh and kind of set the standard for Pittsburgh quarterbacks in the future, I think is absolutely fantastic stuff, and I think that that's what I would do if I'm the Pittsburgh Steelers. Michael Hyrick comes in, says, what do you think about signing Odell Beckham to Pittsburgh Steelers before bye week? They just signed Isaiah Hodgins. That's their answer in terms of a backup wide receiver, in my opinion. And I actually like the signing. Hodgins is tall. He's 200 pounds. He's a good short and intermediate route runner. He's got good hands. He provides a lot of things from a bigger receiver perspective that nobody else on this team provides. DK Metcalf has a limited route tree. Of course, Calvin, Roman, and Scotty are all tiny, so they have another bigger receiver they can put in certain formations, early down situations, stuff like that. He's not going to change the world or the season or be a complete needle mover, but he's a contributing piece that I think will find his way on the field this year. Make sure you guys click that thumbs up icon if you haven't already, if you are a real one here on Steelers Talk. Really do appreciate your guys' support. It helps out the channel, helps put our videos in front of more Steelers fans like yourselves. So if you're a real one, you want to help out the channel today, it takes a half second of your coordinator, right? At least to this point, we'll see on Arthur Smith, but also to build a team and to be a team builder and to get the right put the puzzle pieces together to get his team, back into hoisting Lombardi trophies, right? But, a lot of players have come in under the Tomlin regime and they have developed and they have been great players here with Pittsburgh. So, I think that he would have fallen off a cliff a long time before this if he was just a bad coach all along and he was riding the coattails off of Bill Cowher. I think Bill Cowher himself will tell you that Mike Tomlin is not a bad football coach. All right, so I think that this is a popular narrative because, obviously Tomlin wins a Super Bowl 2 years removed from the Cowher regime. But Tomlin, here's another thing, guys. In a league as competitive as the National Football League, you cannot be a bad head football coach and win a Super Bowl. It's impossible. It doesn't matter what roster you have. Now, there's guys that can, kind of have one fluky type of season and never win one again. And it certainly seems like Tomlin, at least to this point, has been that type of guy. But, you have to be at least a competent NFL head coach to win a Super Bowl. You cannot be just absolutely abjectly terrible and just ride the coattails of another team's or another coach. It's just not the way it was on this mailbag. Make sure you click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Till next time, guys. Here we go, Steelers. All right. So I didn't see that message that you sent. All right, so we're still live. Okay. So We are going to get out of here soon. We will be giving away 2 Steelers Talk hats here, guys. Got to do. Oh no, we can't do the spinning wheel because we lost our Wi-Fi. Right? Is that right? Are we up right now? All right. Right now we are experiencing some technical difficulties, guys, and we need our Wi-Fi to be able to spin the wheel to do our hat raffles. So hopefully that can come back so we can do the raffles. But while we're waiting here, Ponzi, let's talk about tonight's Thursday night football action. This one should be pretty crisp because I don't know if there's 2 franchises in more of an opposite direction.
Like, regarding both of these teams, it's kind of crazy how bad the Dolphins have fallen off. And I really don't know. If if the NFL could change the slate, change this game, they probably would have. They probably would have changed this as soon as week 1 was done. They're like, all right, Dolphins, Bills, y'all are bad.
Yeah.
Let's get this out.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a couple of good matchups this week too.
Yeah.
So I mean, like.
Well, I actually think that they thought this would be a good matchup.
I think they did too.
Because Miami is before this season was a high-flying offense with Tua and Tyreek and Jalen, but obviously things have just gone way by the wayside. So, yeah, I expect Josh Allen to win this and the Bills to win this game by a lot. All right, so let's do this raffle if we've got the Wi-Fi back up here.
I'm just checking to see if chat is still here. We are good. Sorry about that, guys. Apologize for the technical difficulties.
All right, so Ponzi's going to get our wheel going here, and then we'll spin it twice, and we'll give away 2 hats.
It's actually a very winnable one today.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that. So whenever Ponzi has that ready, we'll spin it twice. The winners can email me at Sperry@chatsports.com. That's my email. Your shipping addresses, and we can get you your hats.
Let me just get this wheel set up for you.
Sounds good. Obviously, guys, kind of a longer live show today and a couple of longer segments, to be quite frank with you, just because I think there's a lot of information out there that I wanted to let you guys know about when it comes to the Steelers defense.
I think that was definitely the longest non-watch party live I've ever done.
Yeah, it's been kind of a doozy. We're approaching 2 hours on the live show here today, guys. So thank you guys so much to everybody that's made it with us here the full 2 hours. And now let's spin the wheel here. Very winnable today. Estevan has already won one, so you can take him out too.
Oh yeah, and Robert
Locke.
Shout out to Robert Locke.
Trying to look at all the names here and the guys that have won it. I think Kevin Reed might have one too. Maybe Donna Elliott too, but I'm not sure, so keep him on there.
Alrighty. Here we go.
All right, spin that wheel. The winners can contact me at Sperry@chatsports.com. It's down there in the bottom of your screen. Donna! All right, you Venmo'd me so I can get in touch with you, or you can get in touch with me, Donna. We'll make sure to get you your Steelers Talk hat. Big shout out to Donna Elliott. Let's spin that wheel one more time here.
Here we go. Hey!
And Ali, the Reaper. Ali, I know you have my information on X as well. You can send me a DM or you can send me an email. Shout out to those two for winning those Steelers Talk hats. Just send me those emails or those messages, guys. I greatly appreciate your guys' support. Really fun show today, man.
Really fun.
We talked a lot about the defense, and I think this discussion needs to be had, frankly. You know, this defense has got to play better. No question about it. And I still have hope that they're going to be able to turn it around this season. I just think there's too much talent for it not to get better as the season goes on. But you never know, Ponzi. And if they never figure it out, Tomlin's ass should be grass, plain and simply.
I really do think that a team would trade for him.
I think so, too.
I know it's the same thing. I think we talked about this, too, with Trader Joey about John Harbaugh, saying that a lot of teams would like them as their head coach.
Yes, a lot of teams would love Tomlin as their head coach. Teams that just have terrible organizational structure that would just need like a stabilizing force.
Dolphins.
Cowboys.
I think
we'll see a
if
shoddy.
betting odds was, I think the Cowboys would probably be one.
Yeah, we'll see a shoddy. All right, man. So that's going to be it for today's show. Our next live show will be on Sunday for the watch party starting at 12 p.m. Eastern Time, an hour of pregame coverage, live play-by-play, and, of course, the extensive postgame coverage as well. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button from me and Ponzi today, guys. We'll see you guys next time, and until then, here we go, Steelers.